أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of the Shia Imami Ismaili Council for Canada, the Canadian Council of Muslim Women, and the Ismaili Centres Vancouver and Toronto, in collaboration with the Muslim Awards for Excellence and the Institute of Islamic Studies at the University of Toronto, we welcome you to the second Thought Leader series, Celebrating Muslim Excellence. I'm speaking to you from the traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish. Our speakers today are joining us from regions across this country that are the traditional territories of numerous Indigenous peoples. We recognize, honor, cherish, and are grateful to share this beautiful land with our Indigenous brothers and sisters. This series was conceived to showcase the contributions of Muslims to the Canadian fabric and to highlight the work of those individuals who are leaders in their fields of endeavor. Our faith teaches us not only to acquire knowledge, but to use this knowledge for the benefit of others. And so through this series, we hope to bring together Muslims of diverse backgrounds from coast to coast to coast, and fellow Canadians in the sharing of knowledge to build a stronger, more peaceful, and pluralistic society. In our inaugural episode, we explored the physical challenges that the community was presented with through the COVID-19 pandemic, and the intrinsic connections between people and societies on a global scale. In our second episode, we highlight an equally pressing concern: the importance of mental health, particularly as we emerge through the pandemic into new socioeconomic realities. Addressing mental health within the Canadian Muslim community remains a critical conversation, amplified by discrepancies and marginalization in navigating post-pandemic life. Examining the ways in which the importance of mental health is promoted within Islam, juxtaposed by the spectrum of cultural narratives on addressing mental health, under the socio-political context of xenophobia and Islamophobia, necessitates dialogue and an exchange of ideas to address the state of mental health within Muslim communities. Our moderator for today's discussion is Camille Karmali. Camille Karmali is an award-winning television reporter and anchor for Global News in Vancouver, and covers a wide array of topics, from provincial politics to the climate crisis. Camille's decade-long journalism career has taken him across Canada, including to Calgary, Ottawa, and Toronto, while also reporting for Global, CBC, and CTV during his broadcasting journey. Camille has also worked as a freelance documentary storyteller for the Aga Khan Development Network in Pakistan, Mozambique, and Tanzania, shooting and editing videos on some of the not-for-profit's development work in rural regions. He most recently volunteered at AKDN's University of Central Asia, teaching students about journalism and communications in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. It's my pleasure to hand it over to Camille Karmali.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining us in what I'm sure will be a riveting and thought-provoking thought leader series. My name is Camille Karmali. I'm a reporter and news anchor with Global News, currently based out of Vancouver, rather, did live in Toronto. And this thought leader series, the topic for this one is perspectives on mental health, a very important and current topic, especially coming out of what was a very difficult 2 years with the pandemic. So many people affected by mental health issues, especially in this information age where we're expected to, as somebody who's even in the news, expected to be empathetic to everything. So it can be a lot. We're going to be talking to our wonderful panelists on topics like what is contributing to mental health issues in this day and age, and how our faith can play a role in helping us through some of those difficulties that we may face. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this is hosted by the Canadian Council of Muslim Women and the Ismaili Centres of Vancouver and Toronto, with collaboration with the Institute of Islamic Studies, University of Toronto, and Muslim Awards of Excellence. We have three wonderful and generous speakers here today. Dr. Saira Sabzali. Dr. Sabzali is the Clinical Director of Dragonfly Wellness Center. Amongst her many focuses, Dr. Sabzali provides online women's support groups in addition to working with people to manage depression and anxiety and enhance family dynamics and relationships. Thank you for being here, Dr. Sabzali. Very important work that you do. Imam Yasin Dwyer is also joining us. Imam Yasin is the Executive Director of the Muslim Chaplaincy of Toronto. Imam Yasin has lectured on Black Canadian culture and the history of Muslims in the West. Yasin was the first full-time Muslim chaplain to work with the Correctional Service of Canada. Thank you so much for being here with us, Imam Yasin Dwyer. Also, very important work that you do. We also have Selda Sessin. Selda is completing her PhD in the human relationships in the field of spiritual care and psychotherapy at Martin Luther University College, formerly known as Waterloo Lutheran Seminary. Selda was awarded the Coalition of Muslim Women Who Inspire Award, Inspiring Leadership category in 2017, and incredible work and inspiring indeed. So three wonderful panelists who are going to be, we're going to have the privilege of learning from on this, once again, very important topic. When it comes to the format, each one of these panelists will have two questions that they will answer, the same two questions. Then we've asked our panelists to pick one additional question, a third question, to tackle when it comes to faith and mental health struggles. So we're going to start off here with Imam Yasin Dwyer. The first question, which you had a chance to look at, to think about, is can you briefly share your work and background as it pertains to promoting mental health in the Muslim community? And, even looking further back, what drew you to this work?
Well, first of all, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, most gracious, most compassionate, most merciful. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. And thank you for the very kind invitation. It really is a pleasure and an honor to share this time and this moment with all of you, especially on such an important and relevant topic. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God, I got involved in chaplaincy almost 25 years ago, really by accident, or rather divine accident. The Correctional Service of Canada was in search of a full-time Muslim chaplain to provide pastoral care to Muslim men and women who found themselves in the federal correctional system. I did apply, not necessarily because I was an experienced chaplain, but rather because I had a long history of volunteerism in some of our correctional institutions. And 25 years ago, there weren't really many Muslims who were involved in the vocation of chaplaincy. Today, things are much different. We have some wonderful pastoral education schools, namely Emmanuel College at the University of Toronto, who are providing pastoral education for aspiring Muslim chaplains. So at that time, I was granted that position, and I began to do what I believe is some very pioneering work in trying to provide an Islamic voice to the vocation of chaplaincy. So really, I got involved really headfirst in this work, providing Muslim inmates with some semblance of spiritual meaning and helping our brothers and sisters do their time without the time doing them. And ultimately, related to my motivation to get involved in chaplaincy, providing mental health care, spiritual health care, psychological care to our brothers and sisters, really, it relates to our mission as believers. Indeed, if we want to summarize the religion of Islam, we can summarize it in this way: keep your heart busy with God and keep your hands busy with the people. Keep your heart busy with God and keep your hands busy with the people. So we determine our state of religious and spiritual connection by how much we remember God and how much we serve those within our congregation and beyond. And we can also define our religious life by how far we go to serve those who are marginalized, who are suffering, who are carrying a lot of pain and trauma. And within our correctional institutions, we do find a concentration of those who are really struggling, as I said at the beginning, to find meaning in their lives. Since then, I have moved on to take on a chaplaincy position at a post-secondary institution. Many people ask me, what is the difference between providing pastoral care in a correctional facility and providing pastoral care in a post-secondary institution? I usually reply, not much. There's a lot of similarity, but I think the quest for meaning is universal. The architecture of both our correctional institutions and many of our educational institutions is strikingly similar. I'll leave that up to you to decide why that may be the case, but I find myself now working at the University of Toronto with an organization called Muslim Chaplaincy of Toronto, where we provide counseling services, mentorship services, provide religious and spiritual education services, and provide advocacy services for students and staff at the University of Toronto, Toronto Metropolitan University, and beyond. So ultimately, keeping your heart busy with God and keeping your hands busy with the people. And of course, it's most relevant now because over the past 3 years, we have been dealing with some very unusual circumstances that have clearly impacted the mental health and wellness of not only the Muslim community, but our fellow citizens at large.
Those in the correctional facilities often forgotten that they also struggle from mental health issues and need as much help, if not more, than so many of us out here. Dr. Saira Sabzali, same question to you. What drew you to the work that you do, and can you share your work and background in relation to promoting mental health in the Muslim community?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that beautiful opening, Imam Yassin. We always start with Bismillah, so thanks for bringing that in right away. My journey was, it feels like, completely planned by not me. And when I started thinking about what I wanted to do as a career, I was really drawn to psychology, but I found that what was missing in psychology was the spiritual lens. There wasn't enough conversation, in my opinion, in mainstream Western psychology around spiritual life. And so I stumbled upon transpersonal psychology. And transpersonal psychology is kind of the meeting place between psychology and spirituality. And so I dove right in and went for my PhD. And through that experience, I got to be immersed with different faith traditions, some ancient traditions, some newer traditions, and studying with teachers from many, many traditions. And it was so eye-opening to me to see how similar foundationally a lot of traditions around the world are. And as far as particularly in our community, as a Muslim community, when I graduated, I was really drawn to sharing what I've learned with the community that I'm a part of. And so I'd be asked to speak and to run groups. And slowly I was kind of identified by the people, the powers that be, to lead a national mental health strategy within our faith community, particularly within the Ismaili community. And so it was I developed with my team a 10-year plan of how we would implement this conversation around mental health, because we would talk about wellness or mental health and people would get very uncomfortable with that language. And so we've actually had to start with an anti-stigma campaign. And so we spent about 2 or 3 years really educating our leadership and helping them with language around mental health, teasing away some of the myths around mental illness. And after that foundational work, 2 to 3 years of education for our leadership, then it was possible to then bring it to the Jamaat, to the community, so that they could kind of have the conversation in a context that felt safe to them. So in addition to the anti-stigma campaign, I find group work is really, really powerful in many communities, but particularly in our community, we have that model of brotherhood, sisterhood. And so bringing the community together to wrestle with some of these difficult questions can be really powerful. And so when COVID-19 hit, I was running a group through my work, I guess it's my practice, called Chai and Chat, where we would talk about different mental health concepts. And it was particularly for women living with signs of depression and anxiety. Well, somebody from the community came to one of those sessions and asked me if I would be open to offering this to people from the Muslim communities, and 300 women every week showed up for 2 years. And it was mind-blowing. And all we did was talk about concepts. We talked about things like what is wellness. We talked about things like boundaries, communication, things that we haven't really openly spoken about as far as life skills that people just assume we should have, that we've never really learned. And so it was kind of a life skills approach. And the women really, really enjoyed it. We tapered off as things started opening up again and people went back into their lives. But that was a really powerful platform, I think, for us to talk about something that traditionally has been more whispered about. We were able to actually talk about it. And so that's kind of my involvement and my interest. And the other piece that I'm really interested in is connecting our communities with external resources. So, for example, the Canadian Mental Health Association has a program called Living Life to the Full, where they will train people in different communities to then deliver this programming to their communities. And so we were able to create a partnership with them and bring this to our own places of worship. So it's familiar faces giving the teachings rather than somebody maybe who doesn't have the context of the community. And so that's another one of my passions is linking up the already available evidence-based research, very, very, very many pieces of that's out there in the world with the communities that are looking for support, and in a way that's translatable, in a way that's speaking the language that people can understand, that's coming from their own context. So that's kind of how I got involved and where I'm with it now.
Amazing that you were able to bring in so many people, and some of which who were probably afraid of that stigma, and able to eliminate some of that stigma attached to talking about mental health issues. Selda, I'll bring that same question to you. What drew you into the work that you do, and can you share the work that you do and the background in promoting mental health in the Muslim community?
Thank you very much, Kamil, first of all, for this, beautiful opportunity to speak with very valuable, speakers over here and speaking, on this very important, significant topic for all of us. I'm an adjunct faculty at Martin Luther University College, and I'm teaching some psychotherapy courses and theology courses. And before, I have my academic, work on campus, and I have been master's students, and I have been looking for a campus community to engage with, to grow spiritually and academically. And I realized that actually I had only some peers around me, and and some mature support support like academicians on campus or out of campus around me in my, region and area. And I realized that actually, and I started, creating a community around me, and developing the awareness that like we need, peer support, we need mentors around us, like so we need some safe and brave spaces to talk about, our personal issues, our integration issues, any kind of issues as Muslim community on campuses. So then 2015, I was asked to become the Muslim chaplain of Laurier University. So on campus, I joined the multi-faith resource team as a Muslim chaplain, while actually I was completing my third master's and deciding to start my PhD in spiritual care and psychotherapy on campus. So then I did my internship, clinical internship, so for psychotherapy internship at Dalton Gallup Counseling Center, which is federated, therapy center of Laurier and Martin Luther University College that time. And I started seeing the students and coming, from Waterloo University or Laurier University, so coming for counseling. So, and that was a great channel, or great place to discuss many issues of diverse Muslim community over there, and especially young people, especially local communities, issues around spiritual care or psychotherapy, and so I found myself into the community as a clinical intern, psychotherapist, and spiritual care provider, and it became so rewarding work for me, and kind of I found myself into this work. And like Brother Yasin, I have served since 2012, and since I came to Kitchener, so at the correctional center. So we do have a federal woman Grand Value Institution for Women, federal prison over here. So I have been providing spiritual care there, spiritual support, for the Muslim inmates from 2012 till COVID. So, and physical, so which I can kind of relate what you say about working on campus with people, and also people in incarceration system. So really we do have some overlapping issues, or very specific issues around that. So I am pleased that actually I became an academic, in the field, and serving, my community, doing some academic work, which my latest, dissertation is on Muslim parenting and their acculturation process and impact on their, parenting experiences in Canada. And so I am offering many parenting sessions for institutions, just to help families, and to promote the wellness of families and children. Especially also parents. As Muslim chaplain, so actually I forgot to add that. So I'm also working as an education inclusion coordinator at Wilfrid Laurier University, which I quite work with the community who are deserving equity and justice, and especially working with LGBTQ plus communities, and trans women, or sexually abused, community members, and Black student association, Muslim student associations. I closely, work with those equity deserving communities, and I am very proud to provide them a safe and brave space on campus and out of campus in my capacity.
I can't even begin to count how many people the three of you have probably helped. I'm sure there's so many people out there grateful for all three of you choosing the paths that you did. Yassine, I'm going to come back to you because I'm sure this is a question you get often, and I think we're all curious to hear your answer. Which Islamic teachings or traditions do you turn to in times of mental strife and stress?
Well, we have a very limited period of time, so I'm going to have to really limit my answer. But one of the teachings that brings my heart peace and stability and balance is related to our beloved Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, where God Almighty describes him in the Quran, wa innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. God says, indeed, we created you of an exalted khuluq. What is khuluq? Khuluq is an Arabic word which means character, personality, but more specifically, it means your inner image. There's a word in Arabic called khalq, which means your outer image, but the word khuluq means your inner image. And both words are spelt the same way in Arabic. However, one means outer, the other means inner. But our beloved Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, was described by God as having an exalted inner image. An exalted inner image. And ultimately, when we speak about mental health, when we speak about wellness, when we speak about what is happening on the inside, ultimately we're talking about, developing our khuluq, or developing what is called husnul khuluq, a beautiful inner image. Because religion, yes, relates to what we do. We are people of prayer. We are people who fast. We are people who do things. Islam is a religion of action, very similar to Judaism, for example. Judaism is a religion of law. Islam has law. Islam is a religion of knowledge as well. There are certain things that we believe, but also Islam is a religion that seeks to establish something called ihsan, which means beautification. And that has to do with what we become. That the religious journey is not only about what we do, what we know, but also what we become. And what we become is really tied to what is happening on the inside. So I find a lot of rest and solace in celebrating, this salient feature of the best of creation, our beloved Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace. And as well, I seek refuge in a particular verse of the Quran where God Almighty, in describing the Prophet Muhammad, says, indeed, in the messenger of God, meaning Muhammad, you have an excellent example for those who believe in God, believe in the last day, and remember him, God, much. And verily, when an enemy or when a difficulty, when a trial comes to a believer, they respond by saying what? This indeed is the promise of God and the promise of the messenger, and the promise of God and the messenger is true. And after settling your heart with this, that indeed, whatever comes to us was never meant to pass us by, whatever passes us by was never meant to come to us. Once we settle our hearts with this reality, we say, indeed, our only purpose, our only goal, our only sense of peace will come with increasing in faith and increasing in submission. So these are a handful of our religious and spiritual teachings that, I find much rest in, and I do my best in my own chaplaincy work, in speaking with brothers and sisters who I come across, to remind them of this, that our religious life revolves around not only what's happening on the outside, but what's happening on the inside. that ultimately we have to learn how to talk to ourselves. I think we have difficulty speaking to ourselves. And, I may go out on a limb and say the reason we have difficulty speaking to ourselves is because we're afraid of that monster inside. We're afraid of that monster inside. But if we can learn how to speak to ourselves and we can learn how to, again, live within, we'll be able to more fruitfully and more confidently live in the seen and material world, and be able to navigate our way through a lot of the difficulties and challenges that we face as believers. And God knows best.
What a beautiful reminder. Thank you for sharing that with us, Imam Yassin. Saira, is there a teaching or a tradition that you turn to when you're feeling stressed or feeling any mental strife?
So I would say that there's three that come to mind for me. Like Brother Yassin said, there's so many to choose from, but I would pick these three for myself over the last few years. So those would be remembrance, community, and guidance. So remembrance, zikr, right? When it's really, I live with clinical depression. And so when it was really, really bad for me, I was kind of in the darkest valley. Zikr is what moved me through, that remembrance, that constant remembrance that we're not alone in this, right? That we have this creator that's watching us and guiding us and available to us. And we just have to remember and just kind of get realigned to what's right in front of us. One of the ways that I do that is through looking at trees or nature. It's a great reminder that there's the creation, and there was a creator that created this creation, and I'm also a member of that creation. So that remembrance has been the I would say, my anchor. The second is the Jamaat, the community, making sure one of the key things in mental illness, especially depression or anxiety, is the capacity to reach out and connect. There's such isolating illnesses. And so to remember that we have this community at our fingertips, all we have to do is ask and people show up. And so that remembrance of the sisterhood, the brotherhood that's around us, and not trying to do it alone, that would be the second. And then the third is guidance. We have never been left without a guide. And so there's so much remembering that I don't have all the answers. Of course I don't. But sometimes I think, with our ego and our intellect, we sometimes think we know. And so remembering that we don't know, and that there's always guidance available, and we have to turn simply to our traditions and the Quran to see that guidance is at our fingertips. So those three things for me, remembrance, the community, and guidance.
All very important reminders as well. And thank you for sharing that personal story as well. I'm sure a lot of us are feeling that stress and that heavy weight of depression during these very difficult times. Moving over to you, Selda, when you feel any sort of stress or mental struggles, are there any Islamic teachings or traditions that you turn to?
Right. And in addition to what Yassin and Saira mentioned, so definitely in the center that, in the center of my life, there is the faith and trust in Allah. So, and, because that trust and helps to center me and ground me. So wherever I am, whatever I am facing with, so whatever is happening around me. So, and I found out, okay, this is supposed to happen, or I'm in it, so there's no need to dwell. And so past is past, future is not here. So what I have, it's what I have. So kind of, finding, my strengths in it. Then finding the hikmah, like what is the reason that actually I am experiencing that, why this is happening, where I am short, where I am, strong in the situation. And so looking for the hikmah and try to understand that. So because when you understand that, what I believe that actually the test and trial will pass, you will pass that, So when that does its job, and it's going to be over. So kind of I am, at like, this is the strategy, like I kind of check myself, my heart, my mind, that I am fine, like, okay, when I have just good days, good things, like nima, like just the goodness of the things coming from Allah. So I'm fine with it and I have no problem. So, but when I was tested and have trials and tests, so why I am being uncomfortable with it, like, so kind of, trying to balance and trying to ground myself. So what I have, and just do my best, like in the light of teachings of Quran and Prophet Muhammad, right? And I know that actually, so we are here to become an insan kamil. So it means that actually we are here just to grow, to develop in terms of our skills, and I mean, just find our high potential, right? So best potential, full potential over here. So, and I believe that whatever we are going through, whatever we were given or not given, these are all for our our development. So then when I look at that, so even the stresses became a kind of a trampoline, like just to throw you like further. So in the life that you think that actually you're just bouncing in the same place, but actually it's making you just ready just to go further, like a different place or better place, right? So, and I believe that that mindset is quite helpful for me, and make me go in every different or difficult situation, and help me to adapt well, and also it boosts my understanding of life over here, because why I am here, the purpose of my life, meaning of my life, I just kind of check through that. I'm not here like just to entertain myself and just to get everything like just or prove something to people, or get every best thing out of it for myself, for my entertainment, etc. So I check why I am here and what I am doing here and where I am going. So when I check those, I center myself, and then all those grief, all those, frustrations and overwhelming just, fade away, like, so especially, I remember the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, who says that, you are in a journey, and, like you came here and you were like resting under a tree, and then you will continue your journey later on. So under that tree, what fight I am giving? Why do we need to, make this little rest time or observation time, like just turn into, a big fight or struggle, right? So, and knowing that, where I am coming from and where I'm heading to is helping me, so allow me, to digest the things, I'm experiencing, and allow me to be patient, and allow me to see further than what I see. So maybe these are these are very personal level, understanding or looking at the world, but definitely, and I found that in the teachings of Islam and Quran and Prophet Muhammad, and especially when I go to bed, before I go to bed, like always having a reflection of like, what if it is my last night I'm going to bed? So okay, what I have been upset all day, what I have been like struggling to complete, or like complaining about that. So like tomorrow, if I don't wake up, they're not going to be an issue and problem. And so remembering that it's in the Islamic tradition, it's called rabita-i maut, right? Thinking or having the reflection on your death. So like that also quite centers me. Like, so, and I think especially in our work that like we're supporting, spiritually, like mentally, many people. So, and sometimes, as Saira, you mentioned that, like, so we feel like helpless, like because we are just there to walk with them in terms of their journey, to support them. So, but all the shifa and healings from Allah, and kind of, and knowing our position there, we are not we are just, supporting them, and with the permission of Allah, and also in terms of the capacity of people, right? So like we're just supporting them. So, and praying Allah just to give the power, the healing power to heal the people, with His own power. Then it kind of takes the burden over my shoulder, and then I feel have a good rest, or feel feel that internal freedom. So then I don't feel overwhelmed and then stress of my work.
That grounding, that centering, and the reflection, incredibly important work, and I'm really glad that you've found a way to practice that more and more often. It's not easy for everybody to do, but it's I'm sure a lot of people can learn from your experiences. Selda, we're going to stick with you. So we're going to move on from the two questions that all three of you answered to individual questions that each of you pick. So one question per panelist. We're going to go in reverse order now. So Selda, we'll start with you. We'll go to Saira, and then we'll go to Imam Yassin. So Selda, the question you picked that you wanted to answer is, how can our ummah address the compounding factors of general social media-induced stress and Islamophobia? How do we participate in spaces for community when they can also be triggering? And I myself, working in news, very interested in your answer there, because I think a lot of us who work in very similar fields feel that sort of stress and question, how we can still participate in these spaces.
Right. Definitely, it is quite, especially in the North America. So we have been, on the media. So we have been exposed to many news, including the Islamophobic, Muslim sentimental, news, or experiencing, or in our local communities. So we hear a lot of incidents or experiences of people. So it is not easy to non-see those, or just like make unsee them, so. And definitely so there are great impact on our mental health, our social wellness, our all over wellness. So I'm kind of the person that I'm not just focusing on spiritual wellness or emotional wellness. So I think wellness is a whole. And so we are in that, like, socially, physically, intellectually, academically, financially, emotionally, mentally. So we are also connected, and so we are a whole. So, and that whole person is being affected from everything. So, and including that heavy social media, negative influences has been great burden for the Muslim community. So in my observation, in my the work that I'm doing with the people, I can say that there are three levels for that, like in terms of addressing. So we may address that personal level, and community level, institutional level, so we can respond to that and address that. So before addressing, so first of all, I think what we need to do, that we need to understand. So because before you address and before you dismantle that, so we need to understand what is happening to us, why this is happening, and what is happening. So what is the impact of those that I am experiencing as Muslim, for example, so, or just the Muslim community is experiencing. So, and when we understand those, and then how this theologically and culturally diverse Muslim community will address that, right? So also in terms of our responses, so we have quite, diverse responses or addressing way to this kind of work. And I think individual level, so what is important that, so understanding that, what is happening around us is quite, affecting us, all us, our mind, our soul, our heart is kind of, being affected from that. And how this is, affecting our sense of, belonging, sense of security, and how it is affecting our social, connection with our community and social engagement, social wellness around us, then how we can internally work on these, and how we can not take those in person and be comfortable under our own skin, be comfortable who we are in terms of our identity, as Muslim women, or as, Black Muslim youth, so, and, with your all intersectionality, with your all, identities, ethnicities, and your all culture and all, your, theologically diverse, background and understanding, and accepting yourself, and, educating yourself, and improving, your own strength and capacity is one thing that personally we can address and we can respond to. And the second one is as community. So Saira, you highlighted so well that yes, we are connected. We are all, our connection, helps us, because I believe the power of collective healing, and community healing. So, and it is, I think, the power of Jamaat, right? Power of being ummah. So there's a healing in that. There's a healing in that, touching in this connection. So, and getting together, listening to each other. So supporting ourselves in terms of the areas that we need to grow, in terms of our strengths that, be proud of those and continue on those, those strengths, and in terms of our weaknesses or limitations, that being aware of those together, and then supporting each other, the places that we are short in, right? So or grieving together, yes, you're not alone. That I feel same way, like how this, for example, traumatizing experience just making me feel that way, etc. Then the third level, I think, is more into institutional, and I'll just, quickly wrap it up. So, institutional level, that, what we can do wherever we are in terms of, our location, our institutions where we are. And so, having that advocacy, that just, being the voice of, voice of the people who are stereotyped, who are discriminated, who are actually experience the Islamophobia or hate crime, right? So, and how to report, where to report, and creating appropriate, support in the system, or certain accommodation if certain accommodations are required, being an activist and having an advocacy around those will be, I think, wonderful for the community who are experiencing Islamophobia through media. So just those are a couple of things came to my mind first. So.
You can tell you're completing your PhD in human relationships. That was very beautifully put, and I think we all learned a little bit of something in terms of this new problem that we all have to tackle. Saira, the question you picked is, what has proven successful to tease apart the discrepancies in religious approaches to mental health from ones grounded in culture, when these factors tend to blend into one another? A bit of a complex question, and might have a bit of a complex answer as well.
Thank you. So I think just asking the question opens a door, right? Just asking the question of, is this cultural or is this religious? Just wondering about that, it starts a conversation. And so a personal example, so my dad grew up in Tanzania and my mom grew up in Karachi in Pakistan, and then they met in England, and then they moved to Canada. And so here you have four different, and my husband's family is from Burma. And so you have all these different contexts with Muslims living in all these different contexts, practicing their faith similarly but different. The foundations are the same, but some of the cultural nuances are a little bit different. And so being willing to understand and see that, like you mentioned, Selda, the diverse Muslim communities, right? That there is diversity within the Ummah. And so I think just an awareness of that is the first step. Now, on a particular point, to ask somebody, well, is that cultural or is that religious, might be a difficult tease apart, because sometimes it's actually not cultural at all. It's just a family. That particular family practices or has certain values or certain approaches that may or may not be shared with the community at large. And so I think, because I have a background in mental health and sociology, it's always like, oh, it depends. But I think the key piece that I want to articulate here is asking the question: is this something to do with my faith, or is this something to do with my culture? So my PhD, I looked at Indo-Canadian women and what happens with first-generation Indo-Canadian immigrant daughters who go away for university. So generally in the South Asian culture, girls would go away to get married. They wouldn't leave home for university, but this was a new thing that was happening. And so I was wondering what the mother-daughter relationship would look like. And through my research, I found that the complexity of acculturation. So when communities come to a new place, so a cultural community, from some part of the world comes, say, to Canada, there's a process that happens of acculturation, and every member of the family may go through a slightly different flavor of acculturation. And so a mother and a daughter may have a different experience of the new country and what values they want to bring from the old country. Now, faith transplants through all those countries. Wherever you are, your faith can be your anchor, but knowing what are actually the principles of the faith and what are things that are flexible that you could adjust in the new place. I think of the story of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he moved the community from Mecca to Medina, right? And the different contexts that they were then put into, from a particular kind of community to a farming community, and what was needed, what adjustments had to happen in the community in order to thrive in this new place. And so immigration, moving around, is part of our history, and the willingness to ask difficult questions about what's essential to me as a Muslim and what's a little bit more flexible based on the country that I'm living in or raising my children in. So that's what I would say. It's a complex, I don't know if I gave an answer, but those are my thoughts on that.
You absolutely did. I mean, asking the question alone, you're absolutely right, it provokes self-reflection and hopefully an answer within yourself. So thank you for sharing that. Imam Yassin Dwyer, the question you picked, and once again, very interested in hearing your answer. How can we utilize Islamic teachings and mobilize the community to create best practice in theologically based mental health approaches? So this, I guess, refers more to putting these ideas into practice.
Yes, a very good question. However, a very complicated question. And just to piggyback off of what Dr. Saira mentioned about context, Islam is a religion of sacred law. We are a religion based on texts. However, more importantly, we have context as well. We have context. The interpretation of our texts is a very human exercise. And the Quran, the traditions of our Prophet, on whom be peace, are interpreted by people. And the challenge that every age has, every generation has, is to bring life to those universal sacred teachings. Well, in Muslim Chaplaincy of Toronto, we have a saying related to faith, related to community, and related to responding to challenges. Come as you are to Islam as it is. Come as you are to Islam as it is. Meaning that we are oftentimes very complicated as human beings. And when you put all of these complicated human beings in a community, you end up having a very complicated community. A community with multiple identities, multiple memories, multiple experiences, especially in a multicultural context such as Canada. So we have to be willing to deal with our community members as they are, however, recognizing Islam as it is. You know, there is a joke. It may not be a joke, but you can smile once you've heard it. You know, there are 4 types of Muslims. You have some Muslims that are in the mosque 5 times a day for their prayers. You have some Muslims that are in the mosque every Friday for Salatul Jummah, for their congregational prayer. You have a 3rd type of Muslim that's in the mosque usually for Eid, right? Only for the 2 Eids you see them in the mosque. But there's another type of Muslim where the only time you see them in the mosque is for their janazah, for their funeral prayer, right? However, they are all people of La ilaha illallah. They're all people of there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. So what can the community do? The community can think more about their collective response to the difficulties, the traumas, the struggles that their congregation may be going through. You know, many people ask me in my capacity as a chaplain, why do bad things happen to good people? It's a very universal question. You know, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, I usually answer by asking another question. It's sometimes not fair to answer a question with another question, but I think in this context, it may be fair. Rather than asking why do bad things or difficult things happen to good or innocent people, the better question may be, what is our response? What is our response? Because if we did know why, quote unquote, bad things happen to good people, or why we experience suffering, why we struggle, if we knew in the divine scheme of things why these things happen, we might become indifferent to it. We might say, as the young people say, and some old people, it is what it is. And we just keep on moving, right? We may be able to rationalize the suffering, rationalize the bad that we see, rationalize the difficulty that many people carry. But the better question, I think the more spiritually informed question is, what is our response? Because it may be unreasonable to expect people to get over their trauma, to get over their difficulty, to get over their struggles. I think the role of a spiritual caregiver, those who are involved in the wellness industry, if we can call it an industry, is not to help people get over their difficulty, get over their trauma, but rather to help them get through it. To get through it with their faith intact. That's really the role of the community. That's really the role of the community, to provide, you know, as they say, a safe space. We hear this term a lot, especially on university campuses, a safe space. Well, what exactly is a safe space? I would argue that, you know, those of us who are, you know, carrying faith and journeying with faith, you know, there aren't a lot of safe spaces for those who wish to get through this life with a firm belief in God. You know, I think part of the, you know, the journey of religion is, you know, to get through, but also to recognize that our religion is there to help us navigate our way through the difficulties, right? Recognizing that we're not promised an easy life. We're not necessarily promised an easy life, that everything will be smooth. We're looking for a way to get through, and the community has to be a place where people feel safe enough to get through it. Again, come as you are to the religion as it is. And I think people will be able to, you know, feel more confident to be able to get through some of their struggles, their difficulties. You know, the community can be a very alienating place because there are certain expectations, there's a certain, in certain circles, a rigidity that sometimes I think mistakenly is characterized as, you know, the religious space. Well, no, we have to make sure that that space is not only about, you know, helping people connect with each other, but ultimately helping people connect with their Lord. And for people to connect with their Lord, they have to feel safe. They have to feel secure. They have to feel okay to come as they are, without shame, without shyness. They have to feel as though because they are people of La ilaha illallah, that there's no God but Allah, they feel as though, I can travel at my own pace. I can possibly heal at my own space and my own pace. And this particular space will allow me to do that. And God knows best.
You're full of great quotes, and what a wonderful sentiment to end our session. That is our Thought Leader series, at least this a session of it. Imam Yassin Dwyer, Selda Sezen, and Dr. Sayeret Sabzali, we can't thank you enough for your time. So grateful for you passing along your knowledge, everything you've worked so hard to learn over the years, and being able to allow us a glimpse into your wonderful minds. We're so grateful for you, and to our viewers and people who tune in. Thank you so much. We don't take that for granted either. My name is Kamil Kuramali. Thank you again for joining us.
Assalamu alaikum. What an enlightening conversation. A big thank you to our panelists, Dr. Sarah Sabzali, Selda Sezen, and Imam Yassin Dwyer. And of course, thank you to our moderator, Kamil Kuramali, for an incredibly insightful discussion. The complexity of today's topic cannot be understated, and we must continue to emphasize mental health within our daily conversations and within our priorities as an ummah. It is clear from today's discussion that the topic of mental health in our communities is one that is transcendent of culture and faith practice, and that in addition, addressing the health of our ummah is necessary for the endurance and flourishing of the Muslim community in Canada. It is beautiful to reflect on the fact that our faith has in its very essence embedded tools and concepts for us to use to enhance our own well-being. Whether it's finding hikmah, the wisdom to understand the strengths within us in times of trials, as discussed by Selda Sezen, or whether we seek to embrace our husnul khuluq, our beautiful inner image, in order to inspire us, as noted by Imam Dwyer, or whether we engage in dhikr, remembrance, as a contemplative and calming practice, as utilized by Dr. Sabzali. Grounding ourselves in our faith seems to offer a sense of freedom and solace in moments where we are seeking meaning of and alleviation from our struggles. As noted in the conversation, to refer to Imam Dwyer's pointed question, how do we get through our struggles with our faith intact? It seems that it starts when the community removes the stigma and embraces the individual with their struggles. It is through connection, as Dr. Sabzali noted, and being willing to ask questions that we can build the bridge of empathy. As Selda Sezen noted, community healing through the Jamaat, by listening to each other and giving space for these conversations, allows for reciprocity in building collective wellness. So, to our speakers and moderator, thank you for conveying the role of faith and Islamic teachings within the realm of mental health, and showing how caring for ourselves in this manner is a tenet of the Islamic tradition. It is our privilege to host individuals like yourselves who have dedicated your lives to these fields and who have made critical impacts upon Canadian society as a whole. On behalf of the Ismaili Centres, Vancouver and Toronto, the Canadian Council of Muslim Women, the Institute of Islamic Studies at the University of Toronto, and Muslim Awards for Excellence, we once more thank our panelists and moderator for providing their time, insights, and energy towards our second Thought Leader Series episode. For those of you who are interested in watching our inaugural episode, a link will be provided in the description below. A final thank you to our audience for taking the time to listen and to be part of this pan-Canadian, cross-cultural, and Islamically based discussion. We are wishing you a prosperous, healthy, and happy 2023. Be sure to join us for our next episode later this year. Thank you, and assalamu alaikum.